Remember that feeling of the calendar flipping to a brand new millennium?
Oh, yeah.
And that little worry in the back of everybody's minds.
Yeah.
What if the computers really did go haywire?
Mm-hmm.
We were all bracing for Y2K, that digital
Uh-huh.
doomsday scenario.
Yeah.
Some folks were stocking up on supplies.
Mm-hmm.
Others were nervously laughing it off.
Right.
But then the clock struck midnight,
Uh-huh.
and nothing much happened.
Yeah.
Or did it?
Right.
You've sent us a really interesting collection of articles and research on this,
Yeah.
including some clips from the You're Wrong About podcast.
Oh, cool.
And I gotta say,
Yeah.
the story of Y2K is way more complicated than most people realize.
I think so, too.
So today we're going deep on the Y2K bug,
Okay.
separating myth from reality,
Right.
and exploring how this tech scare actually shaped the world we live in today.
It's really interesting how Y2K really exposed our growing reliance on technology,
Oh, wow.
even back then.
Yeah, it's true.
Computers were starting to touch more aspects of our lives,
Right.
but they still felt kind of mysterious.
Yeah.
Almost like a force we didn't fully control.
Yeah.
And Y2K played right into that fear.
Back then, most of us didn't have the internet in our pockets like we do now.
Right?
Computers were these separate things,
Yeah.
often tucked away in offices or basements.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that they could suddenly malfunction
Yeah.
and disrupt our lives,
Uh-huh.
well, it really captured the imagination, didn't it?
It absolutely did.
At the heart of all of this was this seemingly small programming quirk,
Yes.
right? That infamous Y2K bug.
Mm-hmm.
Can you break that down for us?
Fine.
What was the technical issue,
Okay.
and why was everyone so worried?
So picture this.
Okay.
It's the early days of computing, and every bit of storage space is precious.
Right.
To save those precious bits,
Yeah.
programmers often used a shorthand for dates,
Okay.
storing only the last 2 digits of the year. 1972 became just 72, and so on.
Okay.
The problem was, as we approached the year 2000,
Yeah.
computers would have to interpret their own BIC.
Uh-huh.
Would they see it as 1900
Right.
or 2000?
Ah, I see where this is going.
Yeah.
A recipe for disaster.
Exactly.
And the potential consequences were huge.
Oh, they were.
Imagine systems controlling everything from
Mhm.
bank accounts to power grids,
Yeah.
misinterpreting dates, and malfunctioning.
It wasn't just about a few computers glitching out.
Right.
It was about the potential for cascading failures across critical infrastructure.
Okay, so the stakes were high,
Very.
but I feel like the media really ramped up the fear factor, didn't they?
Definitely. Headlines screamed about planes falling out of the sky,
Yeah.
mass power outages,
Oh, wow.
even societal collapse.
Wow.
And it wasn't just the tabloids.
Right.
Even mainstream news outlets often presented worst-case scenarios
Yeah.
as almost inevitable.
It's easy to see how people got swept up in all that.
Right.
So how did governments and businesses respond to this perceived threat?
Well,
Was it all just panic and chaos?
it was certainly a global scramble. The
Uh-huh.
U.S.,
Uh-huh.
UK,
Right.
Canada, Australia,
Right.
they all poured billions of dollars into updating their systems,
Wow.
trying to make sure everything was Y2K compliant.
Right.
Congressional committees held hearings,
Yeah.
task forces were formed.
Right.
It was a full-on mobilization effort.
Wow. So a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
And what about the rest of the world?
Interestingly, the response varied widely.
Okay.
Some countries took a more wait-and-see approach,
Uh-huh.
maybe not fully grasping the potential risks,
Yes.
or simply lacking the resources for a full-scale overhaul.
So on one side, you have this frantic race against the clock, and on the other, a more relaxed, almost skeptical attitude.
Yeah.
What explains that difference? Was it just about resources? Or were there deeper cultural and political factors at play?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
One key factor was the legal landscape.
How interesting.
Countries like the U.S.,
Mm-hmm.
with the strong emphasis on litigation,
Mm.
saw companies going above and beyond
Yeah.
to demonstrate their Y2K preparedness.
Right.
They were terrified of lawsuits if their systems failed,
Uh-huh.
so they spared no expense.
So it's almost like an insurance policy,
Exactly.
spending all this money to protect themselves from potential legal fallout
Yeah.
down the line.
Exactly.
And it contrasts sharply with countries like Germany,
Right.
where regulation, not litigation,
Yeah.
tends to be the primary tool for managing corporate behavior.
Yeah.
Their approach was much more measured,
Right.
focusing on setting standards and ensuring compliance
Yeah.
rather than fueling a frenzy of preventative spending.
Yeah.
Okay, so different legal systems,
Mhm.
different approaches to risk management. It's amazing how these seemingly technical issues are so intertwined with cultural and legal norms.
I know.
But ultimately, when that New Year's Eve finally arrived,
Yeah.
the world didn't end.
Right. Thankfully.
As the clock struck midnight,
Uh-huh.
things were surprisingly normal.
Yeah.
There were a few glitches, of course.
Yay.
Some utility bills got messed up. A few slot machines went on strike.
Yeah.
Even a Godiva chocolate store had a cash register meltdown.
Oh, no.
Wait, hold on. A Godiva meltdown.
Yeah.
Now, that's a crisis I can relate to.
Right.
But all in all,
Yeah.
the widespread chaos that many had predicted simply didn't materialize.
Right. It really does make you wonder, though, all
Yeah.
that preparation, all that anxiety, and then
Right.
a few wonky slot machines and a chocolate shortage.
Yeah.
Was it all overblown?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Mm.
And of course, whenever you have a situation like this
Right.
with a mix of uncertainty and potential danger,
Yeah.
well, let's just say it brings out some interesting reactions.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Y2K was a breeding ground for conspiracy theories.
Oh, really?
You had websites popping up left and right
Yeah.
claiming the government was covering up the true scale of the disaster.
Wow.
Or even that they were somehow orchestrating the whole thing for their own sinister purposes.
That's right. I
Yeah.
remember those.
Yeah.
Lots of folks were convinced the world was about to end.
And it wasn't just online.
Oh, really?
There were these pamphlets and newsletters circulating
Wow.
full of alarming predictions
Yeah.
and cherry-picked data,
Yeah.
all designed to stoke fear and distrust.
So a real recipe for misinformation and panic.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just the conspiracy theorists, right?
Yeah.
Weren't there also a lot of scammers trying to cash in on the Y2K frenzy?
Oh, the scams were rampant.
Yeah.
Remember those Y2K compliant CD-ROMs?
Oh, yeah.
People were shelling out big bucks for these things, thinking they were some kind of magical fix for their computers.
Yeah.
In reality, most of them were completely useless.
Wow.
Maybe just displaying a little pop-up message saying, "You're protected."
It's amazing what people will believe when they're scared.
I know.
And it wasn't just software, was it?
No.
I remember hearing about all sorts of survival gear
Oh, yeah.
being marketed to people worried about Y2K.
Oh, yeah. The prepper movement saw a huge surge in popularity.
Really?
Food,
Wow.
water,
Mhm.
generators, even weapons.
Wow.
It was all flying off the shelves.
Wow.
People were genuinely convinced that society was about to collapse.
Yeah.
And they needed to be ready to fend for themselves.
So you have this mix of genuine concern,
Right.
overblown fears,
Yeah.
and then these opportunists preying on people's anxieties.
Right.
It's a pretty unsettling picture.
It really is.
Yeah.
And amidst all of this, there's one truly tragic consequence of Y2K
Okay.
that often gets overlooked.
You're talking about the incident in the UK, right?
Exactly.
With the inaccurate medical test results.
Exactly. Due to a Y2K-related error in a computer system.
Wow.
154 pregnant women received false positive test results for Down syndrome.
That's terrible.
Tragically, 2 women chose to terminate their pregnancies
Oh, wow.
based on this faulty information.
It's a stark reminder that these technological glitches aren't just abstract problems.
Yeah.
They can have real devastating consequences for real people.
Absolutely. And it highlights the importance of rigorous testing and careful implementation, especially when dealing with sensitive data and life-altering decisions.
So we've got this mix of overblown fears,
Right.
genuine glitches,
Right.
and even tragic consequences.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if all the effort and expense to fix Y2K was truly worth it.
That's the big debate, isn't it?
Yeah.
Was it a success story?
Mhm.
A testament to human ingenuity and collaboration?
Right.
Or was it a massive overreaction?
Yeah.
Fueled by hype and a fear of litigation?
Right.
I think the answer is probably somewhere in between.
Right. It's never that simple.
No.
On the one hand, the world didn't descend into chaos,
Right.
which suggests that the efforts to prevent major disruptions were effective.
But on the other hand, many of the glitches that did occur were relatively minor
Yeah.
and could have been addressed as they arose.
Right.
It raises questions about whether the level of panic and spending was truly justified.
And then there's the argument that many companies would have updated their systems anyway,
Right.
driven by their own business needs and
Yeah.
the desire to stay competitive.
Right.
So was Y2K the catalyst for modernization, or did it simply accelerate a process that was already underway?
It's a complex question without a simple answer.
Right.
But I think this debate reflects a larger tension in how we approach potential crises.
Yeah.
Do we err on the side of caution, even if it means overspending and maybe overreacting?
Right.
Or do we take a more reactive approach, dealing with problems as they come?
Tough questions indeed.
I know.
But that's what makes this whole Y2K story so fascinating.
Yeah.
It forces us to grapple with those ambiguities
Mm.
and challenge our assumptions.
Right.
Now, before we wrap things up,
Okay.
I'm curious to hear what's resonating most with you about our discussion so far.
Yeah.
Is it the surprising role of litigation in shaping the global response, the prevalence of scams and conspiracy theories, or maybe the tragic human cost of even seemingly small technological errors?
Right.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. It's amazing how Y2K, this one little bug, managed to touch on so many different aspects of our world.
Yeah.
It's about technology, of course, but also culture,
Mm-hmm.
politics, even psychology.
Right.
As we wrap up our deep dive today,
Okay.
let's shift gears and look at the lasting impact of Y2K.
All right.
What are some of the key takeaways,
Yeah.
the lessons learned from this global tech scare?
One of the most significant legacies is a heightened awareness of just how vulnerable we are to technology.
Right.
Before Y2K, a lot of businesses, even big corporations, didn't really prioritize technology.
Yeah.
They lacked dedicated IT teams
Okay.
and often relied on outdated systems without much thought given to potential risks or long-term planning.
So Y2K was a wake-up call, forcing them to get their tech act together.
Absolutely. It highlighted the importance of robust IT infrastructure,
Yeah.
proactive maintenance,
Right.
and really understanding the systems that underpin our businesses, our lives.
Yeah.
It was like a global fire drill for the digital age.
And that emphasis on preparedness and risk management,
Yeah.
it's really shaped how we develop and deploy technology even today, right?
Absolutely. Think about the rigorous testing
Mhm.
and security protocols that are now standard practice in software development and
Right.
cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Those practices have roots in the lessons learned from Y2K.
It's fascinating how a single event can have these ripple effects across an entire industry. But Y2K also had some less positive consequences, didn't it? Earlier, we talked about outsourcing.
Right. Y2K really fueled the rise of outsourcing and gig work in the tech sector.
Yep.
Faced with a mountain of code that needed updating,
Okay.
companies realized they could tap into a global workforce, often in countries with lower labor costs.
Right.
This helped them tackle the Y2K problem more efficiently,
Okay.
but it also had long-term implications.
So it's a double-edged sword, driving innovation, but also contributing to job displacement
Yeah,
and potentially creating less favorable working conditions for some.
exactly. And it raises important questions
Uh-huh.
about the ethical and economic implications of globalization, questions that are still relevant today.
It seems like communication is another key takeaway here. Remember all the hype and misinformation swirling around Y2K?
Oh, yeah.
Doomsday predictions,
Eh.
conspiracy theories,
Yeah.
outright scams. It was a lot to navigate.
It was, and a lot of that panic was fueled by a lack of clear, accurate information from trusted sources.
Right.
People didn't know who to believe,
Yeah.
so they filled in the gaps with speculation and fear.
So what's the lesson there?
Yeah.
How do we prevent that kind of information chaos in the future?
As technology becomes even more integrated into our lives,
Right.
it's crucial to have open, honest conversations
Right.
about both its benefits and its risks. We need to empower people with the knowledge and critical thinking skills
Right.
to navigate this complex digital world
Yeah.
and to distinguish fact from fiction.
It's like we need a digital literacy boot camp for the 21st century.
Right.
Give people the tools to understand how technology works, its impact on their lives,
Yeah.
and how to make informed decisions.
Exactly. We need to move beyond fear and hype and embrace a more nuanced understanding of technology.
So as we reflect on Y2K,
Yeah.
it becomes clear that it was much more than a tech glitch. It exposed our vulnerabilities, sparked innovation,
Yeah.
and forced us to confront the evolving relationship between technology,
Right.
society, and the future.
And the lessons we learned from Y2K are more relevant than ever.
Right.
We need to be mindful of potential risks,
Yeah.
embrace innovation, and foster a culture of transparency and informed decision-making.
So the next time you hear someone dismiss Y2K as just a hoax
Yeah.
or an overblown scare, remember the bigger picture.
Right.
It's a story of human ingenuity, the power of preparation,
Yeah.
and the constant challenge of navigating a rapidly changing technological landscape.
As we wrap up our deep dive today, here's a final thought to ponder.
All right.
As technology becomes even more intertwined with our lives,
Uh-huh.
how do we strike that balance between embracing innovation and mitigating potential risks?
That's a great question.
How do we ensure that the digital future benefits all of us,
Right.
not just a select few?
These are questions we'll need to keep asking as we move forward.
Thanks for joining us on this exploration of the Y2K bug and its lasting impact.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We hope you found it insightful. And if you're craving more thought-provoking deep dives into the world around us, be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive for a regular dose of well-informed curiosity.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep asking questions,
Yeah.
keep learning,
Keep learning.
and keep diving.
Dive deep.